So I want to welcome everyone to our diversity and inclusion Q&A day. We are excited that you guys are joining us, and we'll be bringing up our presentation in just a quick second. All right, so welcome to our Friday Q&A day on diversity and inclusion. My name is Gio Ayala, and I serve as the Associate Director of Retention and Diversity Initiatives at the Graduate School. So I am joined today by a few of my colleagues, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So our office is ran by Dr. Lisa Sperling, who couldn't be here today with us, but sends her hellos and congratulations. My name is Gio, and like I said, I'm the Associate Director, and I do diversity initiatives, diversity recruitment, as well as retention initiatives.
Hello, everyone. My name is Narki Norton. I serve as the Assistant Director in Recruitment and Diversity Initiatives. Nice to meet you, and thanks for joining our call today.
Hi, my name is Dion Mitchum. I'm a graduate assistant for the Recruitment and Diversity Initiatives Office. I'm a first-year master's student, getting my master's in public health with a concentration in disaster management.
And joining us as well on the call, I believe she is muted, but is Whitney Barr, who is our grad assistant as well. Whitney, you want to tell them what you study?
Sure. So everyone, I'm a second year master's student studying landscape architecture, and mainly through the Recruitment and Diversity Initiatives Office, I help manage the feeder program and any kind of supporting programs for diverse students that you might see on campus.
Very cool. Thanks, you guys. So if you haven't been able to check out some of our videos, we have pre-recorded our Acceptance Students Day, and you can find that on our resources page on our website, grad.uga.edu. We have here our incoming student to-do list, and you definitely want to keep this at the forefront of your mind because there are some next steps, especially when it comes to being able to do everything you need to do to be enrolled, right? So that is verifying your lawful presence, contacting your department and shooting them a courtesy email and letting them know that you will be attending the University of Georgia. Oftentimes what happens is if you are sending a response back, your graduate coordinator might get the response, but your grad coord might not necessarily be a professor in your specific program. So it's good that just as a courtesy, you send your specific program and the faculty there, just a courtesy email letting them know that you will be enrolling at the University of Georgia and you will be joining their programs. So you definitely want to check out that pre-arrival checklist as it does have some next steps. And there are some things that need to be done in order for you to be able to actually register for classes. That includes being able to send us your immunization records, and there's just some good information there, all on our website. It is the Accepted Students Day. It's the recording, as well as Dale Palante is also recorded as well. So some online resources that we want to point you to most of them are on our website, grad.uga.edu, but we have our next steps. We have a little bit about life in Athens. Of course, there's a University Health Center, university housing for those of you that still have to get housing. There's information from our UGA libraries, career services that also serves graduate students, professional development, our experiential professional development office, run by Andrew Crane and our financial aid office. And here are some of the contacts depending on what you have questions on. If you want to get in contact with someone regarding our libraries, Elizabeth White is our contact there. And there you have her information. Carrie Campbell is the Senior Public Relations Coordinator at University Housing, and she can answer any questions that you have regarding housing, grad student housing, and just housing in Athens in general. Bethany Mills is the Director of Career Development and Programs in the Career Center, and she can talk to you if you have any questions regarding career development, career support services, and what their office does. Christine Groth is our contact for the University Health Center. Andrew Crane is our Director of Experiential Professional Development here at the graduate school. That's his information. And then if you have information, if you're looking for information on financial aid, Mandy Branch is our contact information in that office, and she can be contacted at osfa@uga.edu. So congratulations, we're happy that you are joining the University of Georgia, or you're at least strongly considering joining the University of Georgia. It is a great accomplishment to be accepted into graduate school. And this is an exciting time, right? I myself am an alum. I'm a 2013 graduate of the Mary Frances Early College of Education, and I take pride in being a dog and being able to serve my institution how I do, right? Helping grad students just like I was progress through graduate education and progress out of graduate education, right? So we're excited that you'll be coming to us from wherever it is that you're coming from. You are coming to a great place, a place that really is here and has the best interests of students at heart in all the moves that we make, right? So we're excited that you've decided to join us. Get excited. Things are a little sleepy in Athens right now, clearly because of the coronavirus pandemic. But hopefully once this all passes, Athens should be ripping and running again. And football season is around the corner. So there's definitely something to look forward to this fall. So recruitment and diversity initiatives, what we do or what I do out of my office. So we run several different programs, and I left our art recruitment programs because clearly you all already have been recruited, right? So I'm going to talk to you about the retention side of my job and our office and what we do. So one of our programs is actually starting this summer. It is called the Gateway to Graduate School Summer Bridge Program. If you are interested in participating in that program, you have to contact your graduate coordinators and they have to submit a nomination for you on your behalf. That nomination deadline is actually today. Some of you might have heard from your programs or your graduate coordinators already if they have submitted a nomination on your behalf. But the Gateway to Graduate School program essentially is designed to help students transition to Athens and graduate education early, right, and receive some extra support. Primarily, these are for underrepresented students who are coming to us from smaller institutions, from minority serving institutions such as HBCUs and HSIs. And really, the program is there to give students a kind of leap as we think about transition, right, and transition to graduate education. We provide professional development opportunities for them. Students receive a stipend and they receive that support that's needed, right, when you are coming from a smaller school and coming to a place as large as the University of Georgia with very different systems in just a different area. We will actually, probably for the first time in its history, be virtual with the Gateway to Graduate School program. So typically students move to Athens early, and some of what we do is help students kind of get acclimated to Athens as a city. However, this year we will strictly be online, but that is a program that is there for you guys. Another program that we have is the UGA feeder program. It is both a dual recruitment and retention initiative in the sense that the feeder program, we go out and recruit students from our 6 partner historically Black colleges and universities. and bring students in to our institution and provide professional development support, as well as provide them with some funding and some support during the application process. And Whitney, who actually coordinates programming for our feeder program, can talk a little bit about what that program is like and the things that she has going on for the feeder program.
Sure. So this past semester, I'm just going to give you guys some context of programming. We had some really great workshops on budgeting, investing. What does it mean to actually do your taxes as a graduate student? So we try to make sure there's a balance of both personal and professional, as well as academic development focused programming. For example, one of our academic workshops, we had one that was based on design. Many of us have to do posters. You have to go to conferences. How do you really sell yourself on paper and design it in a way that maybe doesn't look like, most of the posters you've seen if you go into a conference? Some other examples, we had a really cool cooking workshop that we did through the Nutrition Kitchen, which everyone has access to, but we just kind of talked with the students that were a part of the feeder program, asked them what kind of meals they would be interested in, and really kind of came up with a menu that everyone was excited to cook. So not only was it, a shared social experience around food, but they also had a chance to learn about the nutritional value of it. And I know, like, as being a grad student, sometimes it can be hard to find things to really fill your cup from a personal standpoint and also professionally while you're in the grad school journey. So we really enjoy spending time with the feeders in an intimate setting. Every year it varies on how many students we might have. Some years 10, 15. This year we had a smaller group, but this gives us a chance to really kind of build those relationships that you might not have access to if you're one of the only ones in your programs. And so I really enjoy working with the feeders and connecting on that level. And if you guys have any questions about the feeder program, feel free, once we get to the chat portion, to drop them in.
Very cool. Thank you, Whitney. So we host retention workshops as part of our graduate student success series. And what we do there is really help students by providing them with the personal and professional development and soft skills that they need in order to be successful in graduate education. I'm sure people have already, mentors and faculty who you've talked to when you were thinking about coming to graduate school, have told you how different graduate school is from undergraduate education, right? So we're here, our retention workshops and programming is really here to kind of help with that transition and help students develop the skills that they need in order to be successful in graduate school, whether that's time management or managing stress, or crafting a cover letter, right? Looking for professional development opportunities that we need on the side beyond our degree to be successful in the job search. So the Graduate Student Success Series happens monthly throughout the fall and the spring. And sometimes they happen in a physical location. Most of the time they happen in a physical location. But this year we will be instituting we will be bringing Zoom into the fold to also make it accessible for students. And it's not just for students that are on our Athens campus, but that Zoom will also be available for students spread out through all of our campuses. So if you are on the Gwinnett campus or Tifton or Griffin, this year moving forward, you will have access to some of these workshops or all of these workshops as well. Another series that we put together is our Transitions Workshop Series. And Transitions is for students who are coming to us from MSIs, minority serving institutions. So that's tribal colleges, Hispanic serving institutions, and historically Black colleges and universities, and are coming to the University of Georgia. That's a PWI, predominantly white institution, an historical institution, and kind of helping students that are coming from those kind of environments transition to a very different place than when they went to undergrad, right? And you can look forward to those workshops happening throughout the year as well. They'll be happening monthly. and we will have that information out. A lot of our retention workshops and transitions workshops will be announced to you through email. That's our primary way of communicating with you. But we do create flyers, and they are sent out through the graduate school listserv. And finally, we help coordinate the Mary Frances Early Lecture Series. And they're on a yearly basis, in either late February or early March, we have a lecture series that we put together where we bring in some good speakers alongside. And that's not just the graduate school putting that, that primarily is a program put together by the graduate and professional scholars, GAPS, and we are there to support them in conjunction with the Office of Institutional Diversity. So that's kind of what we do in my office. If you are interested in helping us recruit, I do have a recruitment side to my job where we are out and about at different conferences. We also are putting on workshops, right? Preparing diverse populations for graduate school. PDP is one of our major programs that we put on in the fall. Our Future Scholars Dissertation Program is also something that we put on for students, where we bring in students who are considering applying to Georgia early so that they can get an insider view as to what the institution is like. So yeah, that's what we do in RDI. So Mark, you ready to launch the poll? So we have some trivia to get you guys minds going here and learning about the University of Georgia. So who was the first African-American graduate student to desegregate the University of Georgia? And there are our options. I'm gonna give you 30 seconds to pick. I can see. All right. So our first African-American graduate student has not only a namesake lecture series in her honor, but now the College of Education recently this year was actually named after her as well. The first student to graduate, the first Black student to graduate from the University of Georgia is Miss Mary Frances Early. She is a Clark Atlanta University alumnus who came to us too. And the rest of the people that are on there are also people who helped integrate the University of Georgia. Hamilton Holmes and Charlene Hunter Galt were actually the first undergraduate students to enroll at the University of Georgia and have a building named after them and lecture series named after them as well. The Hamilton Holmes building is where the Office of Institutional Diversity is, and it is the first building that you see to the right of you when you are walking into the university and walking through the arch. And Horace Ward was the second student to enroll, the second Black man to enroll at the University of Georgia and graduate as well. So we are going to answer some questions for you guys that we received and we thought of to kind of give you some information on our community and the University of Georgia. And then we are going to open it up, and in the chat box, you are able to write in your questions, and we'll just go through the questions that way. So one of our core questions: what support services are there for students of color at the University of Georgia? So there are various different support services for students and a variety of different resources for students to be able to turn to. So for institutional to student support, clearly, we at the graduate school, our office, RDI, are a resource for you. We also have some resources across the institution. Like I mentioned earlier, the Office of Institutional Diversity is where our vice president for diversity and inclusion and strategic initiatives at the university, who kind of is able to create programming and really advocate on our behalf. Dr. Michelle Garfield Cook, and she serves as essentially our chief diversity officer at the University of Georgia. That's her office. They put on a ton of initiatives and do a ton of work across the institution. There's multicultural services and programs. While MSP is in the Division of Student Affairs and is primarily utilized and created for undergraduate students, it is there for graduate students as well. You can join their organizations. MSP is always finding ways to kind of integrate grad students into their programs and are really there to serve as advocates for our student body. The LGBT Resource Center is also there for our students who are LGBT identifying, and MSP and the LGBT Resource Center are both found in Memorial Hall, that is right next to the football stadium, across the street from the Tate Student Center. International Student Life is another office that is there to really support our international students and their serve their needs, so to speak. They are also located in Memorial Hall, and they are there and are actually the people who put together the international student orientation for our graduate students. And finally, the Office of Global Engagement is there for our international student population as well. And that is who you go to if you need help with visa or immigration stuff or general support as well. Next question. Are there student groups specifically for diverse students? So there are. I think the main advocating arm or student group is an organization called GAPS, the Graduate and Professional Scholars. And we should be hearing from GAPS a little bit later on. There'll be, if Leslie's on the call, she'll be able to tell you a little bit about GAPS and what they do. But there are also student groups that you can join, right? The Hispanic Student Association, HSA, that's based out of MSP, also has a graduate student committee or a graduate student arm. And then individual programs have, and disciplines have organizations as well. So I know if you are into STEM, there's an organization called GRADS, and it is Graduate Research Assistants that find STEM. And there are a few different discipline-based organizations that are the same way, right? For our law students and people interested in the law profession, there's a Black Law Student Association, as well as a Hispanic Law Student Association. I know there's a pharmacist, like a Latino Pharmacist Association. So your respective disciplines have student groups as well, and your faculty can put you in contact with those student orgs. So is the student body in UGA a welcoming place? I'm gonna let our grads assistants, Dion and Whitney, answer this question, since they can tell you in real time what it's like to be a student at the University of Georgia.
Yeah, I was just answering some questions in the chat, just to double check. You said, are there student groups specifically for diverse students?
Yes.
Yes. So there definitely are. One of the biggest ones is the GAPS group, Graduate and Professional Scholars. And hopefully we'll have someone from GAPS hop on if they aren't already here and I missed it, to talk more about it. But GAPS is definitely the organization you would want to get involved with if you're looking to be around people who look like you. If you identify as African American, it is open to any underrepresented graduate students, but it's largely Black students within the group. And I know this week we are having Graduate Student Appreciation Week. So they have a lot of things going on virtually. They have some R&B yoga, which has been really cool in person when we're actually able to have the studio and playing different music. During homecoming, they have a GAPS tent, which is nice. And for me personally, coming from being a graduate of HBCU, I went to Spelman for undergrad. it's nice to have, a specific area. During that time, you kind of want to do some things differently during homecoming. Um, and again, I would say that it's just a great network to have. There's a group me. People are involved in different listservs as it relates to gaps, to get in touch with each other. I know because people are having to do their dissertations and thesis defenses virtually, they've been dropping in their Zoom links. And so there are ways for you to kind of build community organically. As I mentioned before, even if you might not have that many people within your department, or feel like, hey, maybe I haven't seen another Black or brown person lately, which, it can happen at UGA, but people are there. It is just a very large campus. And so outside of that, I also have a lot of international students in my program, and they have some groups. They partner a lot with the multicultural office, as well as some of the undergraduate international student associations. They've branched off and invited some graduate students. So if you identify as Nigerian, I know they do a lot of things with the African Student Union, for example. And Jill, let me know if I've missed any big ones, but those are the main ones that come to my mind right now.
I'd like to add to what Whitney said. When I first came to UGA, I'm from Texas. I went to a PWI for my undergrad, and I didn't know anybody in Georgia, so had no real connection, but I found that everyone's very nice. That's what surprised me, is that everyone I talked to, or if I needed something, they were more than eager to help me, whether that be my department, whether that be people I met just like randomly on campus. I was lost. Even people at my office in recruitment and diversity initiatives really helped me in anything I needed. I found my community by joining different organizations, really meeting people in my class. In my concentration, there's not a lot of girls, so that's where I seeked friendship in my graduate association for public health students, or in my classes that had a lot of students in it. A lot of the first years come from different countries or different backgrounds, and so you met a lot of different people from different places, and that helped me find a community. Did that answer your question, Gio?
Yes.
And Gio, if I could add something briefly as well. There are also, just like Gio mentioned, the International Student Life and the Multicultural Services Program has a lot of cultural nights. There's Filipino Culture Night, Caribbean Night, Chinese New Year celebration in spring, Africa Night, with a lot of skits and performances. So there's a lot of different cultural groups. The Multicultural Services and Programs host about 12 different organizations and identities. So you're bound to not only be able to join those places, but there are a lot of university-wide cultural celebrations, India Night as well. There are a list of those big events separate from that. The Multicultural Services and Programs has something called International Coffee Hour every Friday. I think it's from 11 to 1 p.m. A different cultural group will host International Coffee Hour, and typically you're sharing a lot of interesting food from that culture, and you're getting a lot of students who typically may not be able to reach out to each other and talk to learn about the culture by eating their food, but also discussing about their cultural experiences, seeing the decorations that represent where those students are from. So those are additional resources that happens in fall, spring, through the Multicultural Services Office, as well as the International Student Life Office as well.
Great. So moving on to our next question, since we were just talking on ISL a little bit, is what resources are there for international students? Like I mentioned earlier, there's International Student Life, as well as the Office of Global Engagement, and both of those are the main arms that kind of serve the international student population. There is a large international student population, and those students are able to really be served by ISL by a variety of different programming that they put on. And just providing support services in general, right? We understand that, coming to Athens, Georgia is definitely a shift and takes an adjustment, and ISL is there to provide support. Definitely be on the lookout for their orientation that I believe is August 9th. And happens right before the broader general orientation. The good thing about ISL is that they are strategic in the ways in which they connect students to their peers and help students integrate into the University of Georgia and the larger Athens community. And a final kind of core question before we move into any questions that students might have are there diverse restaurants or grocery stores geared towards international populations? So the answer is yes to both. So Whitney, Dion, do y'all maybe want to touch on some of the restaurants and your places to go and kind of shop and stuff like that?
Sure. So one of the places I really like to go, which it's not going to jump out as international at first, but the farmers markets. Athens has a really cool farmers market that you can go to on Wednesdays and Fridays. I mean, Wednesdays and Saturdays. And then there's also another one, and it's located at a park. I believe it's Butler Park. And so it's cool because the one on Wednesdays, they do it at Creature Comforts. So you can grab a beer, you can grab your food. There's a lot of different produce that you can experience that you probably wouldn't have access to if you just, went to your run-of-the-mill grocery store, which I think is nice. And they usually have live music and people from different areas that might come and shop there. Another place I like to go is Cali and Tito's, which is pretty good. They have some Peruvian-inspired food, some Cuban, and a little bit of Mexican, I would say. Some people might argue differently, but that's my take on the food there. Another good option for Caribbean, Kelly's. Gio and I talk about it sometimes. The cornbread is really good. There was, and Gio, I don't remember the name of the place, but the Mexican market that also has tacos, that $1.50 tacos that people will probably not tell you about as soon as you come to Athens, but definitely I would look into that. What is the name of it, Gio?
Los Amigos.
Yeah, Los Amigos. So not only can you get tacos, and you can also, what I've done sometimes is if you want to have people over, you can get like a bunch of different things, like the toppings, and like have a taco night at your house, which is cool because sometimes you want to be able to have company over, but maybe you don't have, of course, we're in graduate school, so expenses might be tighter than before, but you can easily do things with the $1.50 tacos. And then I do a lot of grocery shopping at that market. And then there's another one, Los Mercados, I believe. I might be murdering that one, but I think that's what it is called. And they have a lot of cool things like cactus. If you never tried roasted cactus, nopales, it's really good. And yeah, and also if you have access to a vehicle or if you use the Groom shuttle, I do encourage you to go to Atlanta, and there's plenty of diverse international foods that you can find in Duluth and Norcross and Gwinnett. So definitely when you come to Athens, remember that is not that far from Atlanta where you can have that experience. If you are missing, some special ingredient that you need to make your Thai dish or whatever recipe, more than likely you can find it.
Yes, I have to agree with Whitney. She mentioned a lot of my favorite restaurants. I'm from Texas, so we have a lot of Tex-Mex and traditional Mexican food here, and that's what I miss the most. I think the first week I was in Athens, I told my roommate, I was like, I need to get some Mexican food because that's what I was missing. And we went to Cali and Tito's, which is like kind of Cuban mixed with Mexican food. It's like a infusion kind of restaurant, but it's so good. I go there a lot. It's one of my favorite places ever. I also like the taco place that Whitney mentioned. One thing I noticed really quickly about Athens is it's a foodie town, and I find a lot of the places you go, like restaurants, are pretty on the affordable side. And if you ever don't have discussion topic, just ask somebody like, "What's your favorite place to go eat. Do you have any recommendations? That's how I met a lot of friends, and that's how I tried a lot of new places. One of my favorite grocery stores in Athens is Trader Joe's. They have them a lot of places, but they have a lot of good food that's like affordable and things that when you said having people over, I often go to Trader Joe's if I need to get some appetizers or something to feed people if they come over. But that's my recommendation.
And I think for grocery stores, Whitney touched on it a little bit. I think in and around, really around Athens, there are grocery stores that are available. I know in Decatur, which is right up 20, there is an international market. If you go up 316, which is the highway, you get up to Decula, and they have, so Decula and Duluth, in that area in general, there's a large Asian American population. So you can go to H Mart and get anything you need. There are also a bunch of international markets, as well as something that we didn't touch on and nobody asked about yet, but there are places, beauty supply places, salons, barber shops where you can go. I think that was something that was real important for me coming from outside of New York City. You know, I was struggling to find a Dominican barber shop. Back then there was only one, and I drove that hour and a half to get to that one. But now there are a whole lot more, and there's a large Caribbean population in Gwinnett County, which is also up 316. So there's a lot of, if you can't find it in Athens, know that due to us being so close to Atlanta and the Atlanta metro area, there are grocery stores, there are markets, there's anything you need really. And a lot of that stuff can be found, you know, by way of just an internet search or asking your peers. So that is our kind of pre-asked questions. Now, Dion, can you read any questions that can be in the chat? And if you have any question that has kind of popped into your mind, please write it down in the chat and we'll get to them.
Okay, the first question is, can you speak about the experience of an LGBT student at UGA?
So that's a great question. I think the LGBT Resource Center does a lot to support students. The LGBT Resource Center at this point is a good 15 to 20 years old. And actually one of my professors, Dr. Michael Shah, was the first director of that office. They do a lot of work to support students. There is a graduate student association within the LGBT Resource Center called PRISMS. And they do a lot of students come together. And I was actually talking to their director the other day, talking about us doing some collaborative programming for graduate students. I also know that they host a lavender graduation that is very popular. And Athens in general, being a rather liberal place, is a place where LGBT students have said that they feel supported, right? I can't speak to that experience because I'm not a part of the community, but students that I do speak to and have, you know, I've come in contact with over the years, have said that they have found Athens to be a rather welcoming place and a place where they feel supported. I do know that there's also a large event that happens every year called Bui Batan. I think I murder that one every year, but it is a rather popular and large drag show that happens. So the LGBT Resource Center does do a lot within the Athens community and within the UGA community to really keep students supported, make sure that students have a safe space and students feel seen and heard, right? And their needs are served.
And Gio, I would just add to that, through the Mary Frances Early College of Education, they have the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion office that is led by Dean Dr. Annalise Singh. And she does a lot of workshops on trans affirming practice training. So going beyond diversity from a racial standpoint, we're talking about racial identity, talking about class, talking about sexual identity. And they also host an annual conference, which is held usually at the Georgia Center in Athens, and they have a different topic each year. Last year when I went, we talked about ableism as a form of privilege, and so really, I think there's a lot of things coming out of that division, and I'll drop the link to that if you guys want to look into it some more, as far as educating the larger UGA campus on how to acknowledge our different backgrounds and how to be more inclusive and equitable in our academic work, but also professionally across the board.
Now, to add to that, I have several friends who are from the LGBTQ community that have come to UGA for undergrad as well as graduate school, and especially from different backgrounds. So, just like Gio and Whitney mentioned, there's a lot of support here. Follow them on social media, UGA LGBTRC, so that you can see some of their events. Also know where the social scenes are. And just like Whitney mentioned, I think the Student Government Association, back when I was an undergrad, a law that required any new building built at UGA to include unisex restrooms to make sure that students can have access. And also, there's a lot of progression, like you might see some faculty and staff that might include their pronouns or ask for some introduction. So in certain spaces, you see a lot of movements. And even in my debate society at Demosthenian Literary Society, we changed our constitution, I think a couple of years ago, to make sure our gender pronouns were neutral in the language we wrote, just to make sure that our LGBTQ population felt respected and included. Let's include that in our introduction. So there's a lot of really good forward movements here, like Gio and Whitney said, and friends of mine that have really felt at home from different backgrounds and different levels of backgrounds that they found at the University of Georgia.
Any other questions?
Yes. So the next question is, how are other diverse populations engaged at UGA, such as those with physical disabilities or larger body sizes? And how can those of us that are in the majority populations be effective allies?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I think Narki touched on it a little bit. Narki, if you want to kind of just repeat what you had just said.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of those resources that we've talked about, and a lot of our majority populations are a part of some of those organizations. So being a part is very important. Having majority populations as a minority, I'm African American male. So I've had to advocate for more diversity, but there are other people in my debate society that I mentioned from the LGBTQ community that tried to advocate. So that was being of some of those bodies and some of these organizations, and being inserting and being able to communicate sometimes if someone from a marginalized population may not be able to have their voice or may not feel that they can use it. So being you are a part, diversity includes everybody. So you're part of this community to help us move forward and to help us affirm some of these different projects we're talking about. In regards to physical disabilities, we have a lot of services. We have the Disability Resource Center that offers about 3 to 4 different services for our students with accommodations. I've even attended a Disability Resource Center scholarship banquet that they host every year. So it was really moving to have about 20 or so students receive scholarships, and they talked about invisible disabilities, that different circumstances that you don't always see from the eye. So having students talk about external and internal things that they've gone through, and to be able to educate those who attended those banquets. We have a really very impressive community in regards to transportation, in regards to accommodations for our students with disabilities, and also, once again, that scholarship banquet to acknowledge these students and to give them a platform to share their story within the community that a lot of people may not even be aware of.
And I think a big, even beyond our individual, right, institutional programming that we have, I think one of our strengths is our student body. I think we have a good group of both graduate and undergraduate students, bringing issues to the forefront and making change on campus. I was just having a conversation with now a doctor whose dissertation was on fat phobia, right? And how do we create a more inclusive place for those with larger bodies? He's been able to kind of bring a lot of those issues to the forefront through his research and been able to help educate and advocate. So I think that's one strength that the University of Georgia has. I'm gonna be honest with you, the University of Georgia is not a perfect place. However, we do our best for our students and are continuously growing as an institution and wanting to do better. And I think there's strength in that as well.
And I'd like to add, we kind of touched about disability services. I use disability services, and when I was transitioning to grad school, I was worried that maybe I wouldn't have the same resources I had in undergrad, that maybe, you know, my teachers wouldn't be as willing to accommodate me because, you know, now I'm in grad school, not an undergrad, and I found all that to be false. Like the disability services office is great. All my teachers have accommodated with me, and they've been willing to talk about how they can meet my accommodations, and I think it's probably better than how it was handled at my undergrad institution. So I would just say meet your coordinator at the Disability Services Office, and that's probably the first step to start getting your accommodations once you get here on campus.
I completely agree, Dion. And I would also say, as someone who's had support from a disability resource center, that there really are a lot of resources at UGA that are there to support you rather than to, you know, deal with things in silence. There's funding, there are support groups, and so you just need to kind of seek them out. And so if you're wondering if maybe you might need some support with this or that, like, I just encourage you, if you do end up attending UGA, to seek those out early. And if you have some issue trying to figure out where exactly you need to go, then, you know, the graduate school is there as a resource to help guide you.
And I think one important thing about graduate education is that, and in the ways that it differs from undergraduate education, is that in graduate school, you have to be your best advocate. There's no one, I mean, there are people advocating on your behalf, but no one can better know your needs and advocate better for you than you, at least at the level where you talking to the people that can advocate for you, right? It's not like you're, you know, living on campus as a first-time freshman and your RA is there to look after you. You know, even if you are living on campus, your RA in graduate student housing is completely different than your RA when you were in college. So it's one of those things where, you know, I often tell students, closed mouths don't get fed. So you have to be able to speak up for yourself. And even if you are not the person who is directly advocating for yourself, you are talking to the people who can, right? To the people in our office, in the LGBT Resource Center, MSP, OID. And that's not necessarily, you know, the Disability Resource Center, that's not also necessarily you having to do face-to-face, right? I mean, you know, email is open to everyone, you know, shooting an email, putting it in writing, you know, letting people know that you have an issue or you have a need, and seeing how, you know, how your need gets served, right? And I think it's important to kind of keep that in the forefront. And also with your faculty, you have to be kind of open and honest with your faculty. And I tell students that all the time. You know, I know I can speak from a personal level. My, you know, now wife, then girlfriend, got pregnant when I was finishing up graduate school, right? So, you know, clearly that kind of threw my whole plan into a spin. And I very much, you know, needed support from my faculty member. I was, you know, my advisor and my faculty, I had to email them and let them know, like, hey, this is what's going on with me and this is the kind of support that I need from you. And I think, you know, if for example, you're a parenting student, you have to be vocal with your faculty and with the people that can support you and say, hey, you know, this is my situation. This is how I need help. You know, this is how I could best be served as a student. At the University of Georgia, for the most part, you know, people are willing to go out of their way to help you. You know, we are not bringing in students to fail. We are not in the practice of that. We are here to really support you in your education so that you could graduate, become successful, make a lot of money, and then donate a lot of money back. So we really do our best to kind of serve our students, right? So.
And Gio, if I can add something.
You are advocating for yourself. Go ahead.
Just to add on what Gio said, not only does advocating for yourself serve you, but it also serves the body as a whole. So I've seen people talk about what their different identities or their different needs, and sometimes you faculty or staff may not be aware until you brought that up. And what you have communicated now becomes accessible for the next student who identifies like you. I've seen that with the dean of students. I made a comment about visibility and lighting and safety, and this year he told me, apparently you brought this up 2 years ago to me, and now we added some more electrical fixtures there so that students can have more access in the student center. I forgot I made that comment to the dean of students, but his point was, look, when you give me a comment, difference. When I was an undergrad, there was someone I worked with who was also had a lot of disability needs that she needed. She advocated for the university to try and build a ramp through art so that students who didn't feel, who were in wheelchairs like herself or may have struggled walking, didn't feel that they couldn't walk up the steps and take pictures of the arch. And because of that, anytime a student requests and need to get up to the arch, there's a temporary ramp that they can bring there so that the student doesn't feel any different. So there are examples of not just advocating for yourself, what you need to do, but you also begin to kind of expand the university experience for other students. I had a phenomenal faculty member who really talked a lot about diversity and inclusion in my graduate classes, and all of my classes were great, but when she did it, she talked about a diversity and inclusion statement. She talked about what the space would be like, opening up different ideas, clarifying there would be no judgments for anyone in that class. And that caused me to take 3 classes with her the remainder of my graduate experience. And I wrote to the director of the entire institute to say, this is 7 or 10 paragraphs I want to talk to about this faculty and all that she did for me as a marginalized student. And also another marginalized student told me about her and how I needed to have her class. So I didn't do that just because I'm thanking this director for that faculty member, but I want the director to know that as an alumni now from that institute, I value these type of topics in my classes, and we need more professors to be more aware of that. So hopefully that'll keep creating that conversation, to have access to be able to speak comfortably, to use your voice in places where you may feel like you're not able to. So just like Gio said, you have to advocate for you, but by advocating for yourself, you're helping the next student right behind you benefit from services or benefits or access that they may not have had until you spoke and added to contribute to our university.
Right. That is so true, Narki. I mean, even now in this time of the pandemic, students have had numerous challenges in trying to keep up with things virtually. And I had an example within our program. There's a lot of software that we use that is available on the school, the school computers, that is very expensive for licensing. And so, some students, they went ahead and paid for it out of pocket, but maybe you're in my situation and a $1,500 license was just not, the option. So reached out to our IT department within our college, asked them to secure some temporary licenses so that we would still be able to complete our work. And, they made it happen. So sometimes it's no, but a lot of times the question, you're right, has not been asked. And that's why diversity is so important, because you bring a perspective that often has been not seen.
And something that I left off of this slide, and it just came to me, is and is there for a resource for you guys, is the Student Veteran Resource Center also exists and is there to advocate on behalf of student veterans and students who are currently active in the armed forces. Their website, I will add it in there, but I believe it is svp.uga.edu. If you Google it, or svprc.uga.edu. The Student Veteran Resource Center is the office that is there and serves as the main advocating arm for students who have been in the service. Any other questions, Dion?
I don't see any questions right now. Does anyone else have any more questions they want to ask?
Cool. So it sounds like students have, for the most part, have gotten their questions answered. I want to invite you to connect with us and keep in contact with us. Here is our contact information as well as our social media handles. We are the graduate school, and we are RDI, Recruitment and Diversity Initiatives at the graduate school. Our main email address is grecruit@uga.edu. Our website, grad.uga.edu, and under the Diversity Initiatives tab, or Diversity tab, excuse me, is where you see our office. Our number is 706-542-5162. And my personal email address and phone number, my personal email is goayala@uga.edu. Feel free to contact me anytime about anything. And my office number is 706-542-6416. So I want to thank you guys for joining us today, and hope you have a great day. Congratulations again. And we are excited to see you on campus in the fall.